Sure, we're happy to. Ben Chambers,
Present.
Kelly Brown. Tommy Suffernick,
He is filling in for Kelly, and I think he just went to the restroom.
Rory Stolzenberg. Jessica Hirsch-Ballering. Albert Carino Plum.
I agree.
Lonnie Murray.
Here.
Chuck Proctor.
I'm online. I'm here. Sandy's on in person for me.
Sure. Could you please state a reason why you're attending virtually?
I'm in more than 50 miles away and actually on vacation this week. So
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know. Oh, who took my call yesterday?
Sandy Shackelford,
I'm here.
Christine Jacobs,
Present.
Sarah Simba. Jason Espy. Present. Bill Palmer,
Here.
Midge Huber.
Here.
Wood Hudson. Sarah Pennington,
Present.
Garland Williams. All right, that's it. Now you could vote Chuck and
Okay, we can all vote to allow Chuck to participate virtually. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
All right, and a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in
Second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, welcome to the club, Chuck. Any
thanks
matters?
a lot.
I don't think we have any folks public here today. So we will move along to review and acceptance of the agenda. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And second from Albert, thank you. All in favor of this agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this will be our agenda. Next, we're going to approve our meeting minutes from the last meeting. If anyone's had a chance to review those minutes and has any changes, let us know. If not, I'll take a motion to accept the meeting minutes from February 18th.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will move along to new business and I'll pass it along to Taylor and Gordon.
Good morning, everyone. Taylor Jenkins, Director of Transportation for the PDC. I'm here today just to bring the UPWP back to you with minor revisions, and we are looking for a recommendation to the policy board to adopt for this item today. You're jumping. Okay. So just as a reminder, the UPWP is basically the MPO's work plan for the next fiscal year. It identifies all of the transportation planning activities that the staff will work on, and it includes any major regional priorities and deliverables. Changes since the first time that you all have seen this draft. We received updated PL funding allocations from VDOT that include our fiscal year 24 passive rollover funds. That increase to those funds were split proportionally across all three of the tasks. Unfortunately, we haven't received the final VDOT FPR allocations yet, but those will not impact the MPO's work plan. That is merely VDOT's budget for the work that they will do with the MPO. We also haven't received FTA allocations from DRPT yet, so that those will still be represented as last year's numbers until we receive those. Here is the fiscal year 26 work program funding by source, similar to last time, with just that additional increase of about $5,000 accounted for in here. Everything in red is still just a placeholder from last year until we hear on those updated funding amounts that I spoke about. For funding by task, just a reminder for administration, approximately 25% of the funds. For long-range transportation planning, 30% of the budget, and for short-range transportation planning, 45% of the budget. For program administration, there were no major changes to this allocation. So this covers things such as staffing committees, public outreach, information sharing, and professional development, and any compliance with regulations or reporting requirements. For task 2, long-range transportation planning, there was a change in the line items captured under this task. So the 3-notch trail coordination is a new subtask that was added just to capture the 3-notch trail master planning process that just kicked off recently. But otherwise, we still have the same subtask that you all saw with the previous draft, with the comprehensive safety action plan, the transportation demand model update that is currently ongoing, the travel demand management study, and any updates to our long-range transportation plan as necessary. For short-range transportation planning, all of these subtasks are still the same that you saw with the initial draft, with the only change being that we will have an update to our transportation improvement program, and the staff will also participate in the state's process as they update the STIP as well next fiscal year. Okay, and next steps in the approval timeline. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we are looking for a recommendation to the MPO Policy Board to adopt the UPWP with amendments to the budget once we get those updated numbers. This has been posted for public notice on our website, and it will also be posted in the newspaper to collect any comments from the public. Any questions?
I guess my question is, why is CTAC providing a recommendation after we've adopted it?
Because they're out of order.
Yeah, we have recognized that we are a bit out of order with CTAC should ideally see things first, and then it follow through to the MPO Technical Committee and then the MPO Policy Board. Since they are off cycle, we don't want that to be a reason why they don't see anything at all. And so we still have been taking everything to them to give them the opportunity to weigh in. They have already seen the draft and they had a couple minor questions so far, but nothing major has come up to them. It's just following back up to show them the final plan so that we can close the loop on that with them as well.
Okay.
We've also talked internally. I know I spoke to you about the cadence of the MPO tech meetings. I know a lot of you know this because you're interested. It falls at the same time as the CTB meetings. So we have talked about, do we need to find a better date and time so that we can participate in those CTB meetings live versus after the fact? And then we've also talked internally about, should we be moving those CTAC meetings to align with the same month as MPO Tech and Policy Board so that it's not off by that 1 month. Those conversations just happened in the last 2 weeks, so we haven't brought like a tentative change in schedule yet, but we will be bringing that to you guys in the future to see if there's a better date and time that doesn't throw everybody's schedule off, that can make all of these things happen in a better order. Great question. And one we've been talking about.
So your next steps right now are that we vote to recommend this to the policy board. All right, so if anyone has any questions, now's the time, or else I will entertain a motion to recommend the UPWP as currently proposed to the MPO Policy Board.
With the understanding that numbers will be updated once provided by FTA and VDOT.
Correct, with that. Any?
Let's entertain it. That's a motion. I just love that word, like. Words.
Yeah. Is that a second?
Yeah.
All right, so all in favor of
Work for you.
recommending UPWP to the MPO Policy Board, say aye.
Aye.
And any against, say no. Any abstentions? All right, you have your recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, and then our next presentation is going to be on a grant application that Campo will be putting forth for Safe Streets and Roads for All, if we recommend it. Awesome. Russ, welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation to come and address this body today. It's a real privilege to be here, and I'm excited to be here. Today, we're going to talk about a very unique opportunity for a Safe Street for All grant. And I provided a PowerPoint, which you should have, and then hopefully it's been distributed to you. I will warn you, there's a lot of information on there, and I did that intentionally, so you can look back at it after this presentation, should you have any questions. So a quick overview. And I walk around a lot, so I'll try not to trip. There's a lot of words on here. Don't worry about many of them at the moment, except this bottom line. That's what I want to highlight on this slide at the moment, which is the grant application is for up to $4.62 million. And the 20% match is going to be provided by Honda and UVA. And I'm going to talk about how that played out moving forward. So what you see here, it's kind of a bubble map of everybody that we've got involved so far. This is a big effort, and I'm going to talk about what that looks like moving forward. But we really wanted to do our due diligence early and make sure we had a very strong team of consistent and involved stakeholders. And thank you for those in this room who were part of those conversations to bring us to this point. And if it weren't you, it was your coworkers who helped to bring us. But we feel like we have a very strong team moving forward. So what are we moving forward towards? What problem are we trying to solve? If you look at these statistics here, you probably know them better than I do. They're very sad, they're very sobering, and they're very stark. Vulnerable road users are in danger. And we all know that. We know that here in Central Virginia. And since COVID, those numbers have certainly risen, unfortunately. I want to highlight a couple things down here. First off, and I noticed I don't think there are public members here today, but they expect every road project we do will accommodate all forms of mobility, whether it's an existing road or proposed road or one we're building. This is an assumption that's just kind of out there that we need to deal with, and this body is front and foremost in that effort. Secondly, if you read the bottom, there's an industry challenge with risk-based safety design due to minimal VRU crash data and limited understanding of VRU behaviors based on infrastructure characteristics and interactions with vehicular traffic. I know that's a long sentence, there's a lot in there, but this is really what's missing in the research area and in the creation of standards, is the connection of behaviors with what people do with road situations and the geometry that's out there. So how did we get here? This started with Honda. Honda approached UVA, and we have a good relationship with them, with some of our labs, and they saw an opportunity because they have their internal goals of reducing VRU incidents regarding injuries and deaths involving Honda vehicles. But they realize it's bigger than that. This is a problem that requires a bigger thinking and bigger solutions. So they saw an opportunity with UVA, especially from VDOT, the third largest DOT in America, and approached us. We kind of locked the doors in UVA and did a lot of brainstorming. How do we approach this in maybe a new way to create new results that are meaningful? Then we went to VDOT, we connected with Campo, and we're here today. So the objectives, I know it's really bad form to read slide, but I'm going to do that because I think this is important. The first objective is to improve VRU safety, reduce accidents, reduce injury, associated mobility, and cost, and save lives. That is a very noble goal. One of the reasons why you're here, one of the reasons why I'm an engineer, is we're here to save lives. But there are other objectives as well. Improve understanding of VRU interactions with traffic and infrastructure. Provide holistic safety picture to better evaluate realized safety benefits and risks in infrastructure design. And I'm going to talk about those in a few minutes. And also develop models to advance automotive crash avoidance systems to further protect VRUs. So this is the UVA team. And I want to point out a couple things with this slide. First of all, don't think of these as silos. Think of these as like different areas of concentration, different labs, different groups of people, different areas of focus and specialties. We are bringing together a very unique coalition within UVA to help for this project. Very unique. It is not common for there to be this cross-pollination of labs and investment from the thought leaders. And that's the second point. If you look at these pictures here, these are not first-year grad students. These are the thought leaders in the industries. Hopefully you know some of them, and they're going to be involved in leading this project. So this is our approach methodology. A lot of work on this slide. It's for later. Please don't try and read them all right now. But I'm going to walk you through this.
So this is generally what we're gonna do. First, data collection. There's a lot of data out there, traffic data that you all know about. There's also a lot of data that is missing when it comes to VRUs because we don't have near miss data. It's not as prevalent as it is with vehicular traffic. This is where the OM, the Omni Reality Cognition Lab, is going to come into play. Donna and Arsalan, hopefully you met them. If you haven't, they're wonderful people. They're going to continue working down their line of thought, which is creating ways to generate data that isn't there, which is really cool. So, and it's new data. So they use virtual reality. They put all kinds of sensors on people that they get to go out and do things. And they're able to determine data that isn't there and create data, which is really cool. So we're going to collect a lot of data, then they're going to augment that with virtual reality. Why they're going to do that is there are some situations that just don't occur very often, in large part because they're unsafe. But people do it, and we don't have a lot of data on near misses. So they can create data in situations where we don't have data. Then we're going to analyze the data, and this is where it gets really cool. They're going to create a trajectory model, which means any of you, if you're using a VRU unit, if you're a scooter or a biker, you may act differently than your people you're sitting next to, especially given the environmental conditions you're under, the road geometry and such. They're going to create ways, a model that will predict what your individual trajectory paths will be with a distribution curve, which is super cool. What really gets interesting is what this next step is, where we pair it with CAB, which is one of the world leading labs as far as injury causation. We're going to create an injury consequence model. So if I choose course A, this will be my likely injury. If I choose course B, this will be my likely injury. If I choose course C, this will be my likely industry. We compare that trajectory distribution path and curve with what the injuries would be. Why that's important. If the shoulder is this wide, will they get injured? If it's this wide or this wide, will they die? Those are information that we don't have right now. We do a lot of gut checks, a lot of intuition in design, a lot of rules of thumb, which I'll talk about in a minute. This is going to provide some new information. We're going to combine those two and then over here, come up with some new insights. And right down here, if you can read this with me, create better holistic understanding of VRU safety and effective mitigation designs. This is the big goal. It's a big goal. Nobody is doing this. What I mean by that is it's a holistic approach. And if you think back to the slide with the different UVA categories of people, right now research is done in this area, and then in this area, and then in this area. And very few people, if nobody, is taking a step back and seeing how they all work together. And that's what we're trying to do here. So our primary deliverables, first and foremost, help Campo. We want real results from this. Real results that are tangible and meaningful to the people who live here. So we want to enhance Campo's comprehensive action plan with data-driven VRU action plan. Focus on safety and accessibility and create an action item for that. And we work very closely with them because they are the grant holder, right? Assuming it's awarded. There's also some other benefits I think are really important. There's a lot of stakeholders in here that aren't grant applicants. So City of Charlottesville, Albemarle County can leverage this data, and I would strongly encourage you to, and other localities as well. Performance-based design. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that is now a new AASHTO directive of how to design roads. Not blindly adhere to the book of standards, which we all know and love as engineers, if you're my age. Performance-based design, context-sensitive solution, goes by a lot of names, making risk-based decisions based on the context of the unique situation. This effort is going to tremendously help that. We're also going to be able to look at high-risk situations. And what I mean by that, think of an urban work zone in a busy intersection with skewed roads coming in and out. There is no standard for that, right? We all know that as engineers, there aren't standards for that. So use your best judgment. This is going to help with that. And lastly, kind of a tangential benefit, but a really neat one. Honda's going to take this information back, integrate it into their case scenarios, and help advance their collision avoidance within their vehicles and other manufacturers as well. This is an effort that's going to produce some real benefits for people. So our path forward, hopefully I'm on time. This is the first of this kind of gauntlet of meetings, but you guys know the procedures well or better than I do. We spent a lot of time kind of getting to the launch pad here, and this is the formality to go through and actually launch. And the goal, of course, is to submit the application by the deadline in late June. And are there any questions? Yes.
My question probably won't be surprising, so You know, as a runner myself, just looking real quickly, I've logged 2,016 miles on the road. So, I think, there's a huge population of runners, cyclists, and walkers. Many of them have associated clubs and organizations that are associated with them. We also have a well-known business in Albemarle County, in the city of Charlottesville, Dragon Mountain Running Shop. There's other businesses associated that cater to people. What are we doing to reach out to those people? Because I feel like there's qualitative information about dangerous places that could be gained by the people that spend most time on the roads as pedestrians.
That's a great point, and we will certainly be working closely with CAMPO to do exactly that. They will be the determining threshold as far as the level and degree of citizen involvement, but I think that's a tremendous good point. And I'm sure you would appreciate, and I'll use cyclists as an example. We see this from Richmond when I was at VDOT for many years, and Northern Virginia, where we build bike paths, and avid cyclists never use them because it's dangerous to them. Because you have, little strollers and people walking and such. So it's, when you look at VRUs, you almost have to think about it in terms of there is no one solution, because there are different kinds of VRUs, even if they're using the same kind of vehicular ability. So kind of a long answer, I apologize for that, but for cyclists, for instance, an avid cyclist does ride differently than a college student who's got earbuds. I mean, so they need to think about those things. And that's one of the reasons why, when you go back to what Donna and Ursula are doing with the OMC, or the Omni Reality and Cognition Lab, or can't say that, they're able to see this kind of user would likely do this in this scenario, which is really important. But hopefully, if you've had a chance to read the grant application, you see we kind of mentioned that Charlottesville is a unique kind of crucible of places to test a lot of things, I'll say, because you do have such a wide variety of people and such a educated group, and you have these avid outdoorsmen, and also kind of these maybe a little less cognizant college kids and other things. So it's a great opportunity to find places of conflict. So yes.
I mean, I would also encourage you to use the Strava data, which includes all the Garmin data from devices like this.
Great idea.
Widely used by runners and cyclists. And, and while it's the absence of Strava data doesn't mean that no one walks or runs there. Right. But the presence of it definitely means that people walk and run.
Yes. Yeah, great point. Yes, thank you. Yes.
So I guess you kind of articulated. I'm looking for examples in my head, like how are we going to use this moving forward, right? So you talked a little bit about what's going to happen if the shoulder's X amount of feet, or or wider or narrow, or what have you. But and you expressed all these standards we have that make it very difficult to still make these complicated intersections that have organically developed over time to fit these standards, especially in older communities that we're not Florida, where we're building from new, right? So thinking of the VDOT study, I'm assuming we're going to hear from after you, looking at Ridge, McIntyre, West Main, Water, South, all that coming together. How would we use this model for engineering that intersection? What would I do?
Great question. So, and there may be a multi-pronged answer. Big picture, I think this grant will provide CAMPO a lot of opportunity to help them craft their safety plan moving forward. And my understanding is their current grant for that is running out, so the timing may work very well just to dovetail this in and carry on. So that's the first way it's going to directly help this area. And that can take a bunch of different forms, one of which may be kind of reevaluating or rethinking, or I'll say further clarifying decision criteria and considerations of how projects are chosen, and what the solutions may be in projects, which can be a great benefit for people. Additionally, it can be a tremendous benefit when you're talking to the citizens, especially the admin groups, which are usually very involved, to let them know. And I'll make a slight tangent here. Information creates power, which creates trust. So in an organization like this, if you're doing leading research and you're communicating to cyclist groups, we are trying to make this safer for you, and we are trying to lead the industry in this. That builds trust with this organization that I think can resonate in a lot of different ways long term. That's number one. Number two, I think the specific models and such, they may be able to be used over time once developed with VDOT, for instance, to look at very specific intersections, which I think is very cool.
Would it like, I mean, would VDOT be able to kind of say like, all right, well, if we put a roundabout at this intersection, X is gonna happen, versus if we don't put a roundabout at this intersection, Y is gonna happen? Like, would this model help give us information with those variables?
Those conversations are already happening in design. What this model will do and what this project will do is allow them to make more informed decisions when those questions come up.
Okay.
My hope would be for qualitative, when you have these conversations with users, like, I mean, I can tell you one of the dangerous things I see all the time is when you have like a walk signal and a right turn next to one another, because the people making the right turn are not looking at the people crossing the walk signal. So talking to pedestrians, they say like, hey, this is the thing I encounter all the time. I've been almost hit several times in this situation. And then maybe going back and looking, is there data to support that is more dangerous or something that we could fix?
I'm very involved with ASH, so I can tell you that's a common problem across America. When you talk to traffic engineers, and VRUs, let's be candid, there is no 100% safe way to mix vulnerable road users with pedestrian traffic, especially in certain situations. There just isn't, but I think we can make it safer, and we can identify those areas where we can make the biggest impact, and that's one thing this will help. Yes.
Are any standards and other, I guess, rules that come out of this, are they expected to be adopted by stakeholders in the region, including VDOT, or is it kind of like, here's the things we could do, and then they can choose whether or not they choose to adopt some of the recommendations?
I think that depends on the entity. This will be a CAMPO effort, so they will take the results and run with them, because it will be something they're doing and overseeing and want to do to help that. Other stakeholders such as Charlottesville and Albemarle, I think will be encouraged to leverage that data, but you're your own entities. You can kind of do what you want to do, as we know in certain areas, and VDOT kind of the same way. So yes and no.
Okay.
It won't be a requirement at the end that anybody adopt any of the recommendations. They'll just be presented.
Thanks for phrasing all of that.
I guess I have not actually read through the scope, but my question is sort of the scale of your existing conditions collection. Like, are we looking at specific locations? Are we looking at sort of broad network or the urbanized area? Where are we looking?
We will look at specific locations which will be determined and strategically determined to try and give a spattering of examples and case scenarios so we can draw apart.
So you're probably pulling from our
That's what
our
I was gonna
existing
ask.
plan, which is locating different areas where we need to have some focus. So maybe there's
Yes.
opportunities there. Okay.
And I'll add to that, we will certainly be working hand in hand with Campo. So if there are areas of interest to them, they will be looked at.
And also as a part of, if we were to move forward with this application, the EJPDC as staffing the MPO would be the lead applicant. And so we have also written into our own scope, in order to administer this grant, we would be bringing it back to our existing committees intermittently to make sure that we're getting feedback from CTAC, from MPO Tech, and from the policy board on this study. So this isn't going to happen in isolation. This is going to be a part of what comes to you all regularly, so you can also continue asking these questions, continue, influencing some of the outcomes, which we thought was really important if we were going to be the lead applicant.
I hope you don't exclude rural areas. I hope you find some rural areas, because we have unique challenges in rural areas, because we don't have funding for things like sidewalks and bike lanes, and which creates a lot of transportation challenges for pedestrians. And there are people that, just because we live in a rural area doesn't mean that we need to walk to things. My daughters will bike to their friend's house. There are people in my neighborhood that walk down, this is a teenager in my neighborhood who walks several miles to go fishing. So I think those are particularly vulnerable road users, and yet they don't have sidewalks or bike lanes, and there are decisions made by VDOT about things like road paving that really do affect safety, so.
Yeah, yes, very good point. Okay. I mean, especially bus stops, your bus stops. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, couple of questions. And you mentioned briefly that Honda agreed to kind of share this data. Is that something they've already committed to? Because usually a lot of partnerships, one of the catches is that it's proprietary and Honda integrates into their systems exclusively. How does that data sharing kind of set up? Who's the owner long term?
Great question. I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
Every discussion I've been in has not been proprietary at all, and very intentionally, because they are hoping that this, I mean, honestly, it's a very low investment for them, given their research dollars, and maybe this is an opportunity, I think I'm correct in saying, to forward the industry knowledge envelope, and will benefit Honda, but it'll also benefit everybody, and I really do get the sense that there is some altruistic point of perspective from them that this is very little seed money, we're gonna benefit everybody, and it's gonna save lives. And so let's just do it. And they came to UVA and hoping to get it in Virginia because of honestly the reputation of UVA and the reputation of VDOT. And so I mean VDOT does, it's third largest COT. And the reason that's important is because if there's a change that VDOT embraces, it can be widespread implemented much faster than most other states. So I don't believe it's a proprietary issue in any way, and yes, they're activated.
Another question. So when you're, I guess, as I'm understanding it, looking at the, vulnerable road user experience through some sort of technology and mapping that somehow. And then you're trying to implement that and compare that to kind of design, implement, alternative design guides, how are you guys just looking at VDOT standards, AASHTO standards? Are you looking across the board? Is one of the outcomes you're even considering our standard substandard, or maybe there isn't a situation where it would be possible to safely mix or just to mitigate?
That's a good question, and being an engineer, that's a hard question to answer because performance-based design cuts right to the heart of that, where there may be design exceptions or design waivers that are applicable and appropriate in certain situations. And the right thing to do in certain situations. And the way performance-based design is written at AASHTO, the way it's been interpreted and implemented at VDOT is that those decisions are made pending the level of dollar spent kind of project and such at the district level or at central office. That's not going to change. So there will still be options to design and construct things that are substandard given the appropriate approvals. Where this project is kind of headed, we've also, you may remember on the focus group, you saw the EPRC on board. We wanted to make sure they were involved and they will be involved in some of the review processes. So they're probably going to look at things through VDOT and AASHTO lenses. I think AASHTO is probably more appropriate because everybody should need AASHTO. We all are. I think that's kind of the baseline people are looking at, but performance-based design is a challenge as a designer, because if you're designing less than the standard, you have to demonstrate why that's appropriate and why that's appropriate and why that's safe in certain circumstances. And I think this will provide some additional information that yes, this is safe or safe enough. The better way to say it. Because there is no 100% safe.
All right, any other questions?
I don't know a lot of detail about this, but Honda did a similar study in Ohio with one of the universities up there through Safe Streets and Roads for All. So this is continuing that work, but doing it, with a different team, certainly.
They did, and thank you for mentioning that, Christine. That was kind of their test run, and it was in the Columbus area, so another college town scenario where there's just a lot of unique situations that you can test in a small geographic area. Our effort that we're proposing is a much larger scope and a much more holistic approach. I can tell you, I'm extremely excited about it.
The only thing I wonder too about is, when you're looking at strategies, there's the strategies that we don't have now, right? So I think of Batesville, where they've been, the community like repaints on their own crosswalk, and then VDOT wipes it out, and then they repaint the crosswalk back, because they know they need a crosswalk there.
Right.
And how do we get data about the solutions that we need that VDOT doesn't currently support?
That's a great point and a great question, and I'm gonna put on my old VDOT hat for a minute. That gets into not necessarily design decisions, but more operational considerations for maintenance. On a new project, that probably wouldn't be the case, but on old projects where they're retrofitting or doing maintenance, the striping, non-striping really comes into play. So I'm not trying to duck your question, but I think that actually is a very solvable problem if you talk to the right people in VDOT and maintenance. I'd be glad to help facilitate that.
One more question over here.
These are good questions.
You mentioned, you keep mentioning a lot of standards, and the standards are actually related, I'm assuming. Are you looking at any other recognized standards like NACTO's guidelines or the VDOT does, or and where do you do? And looking at maybe this is the data-driven approach to not go for AASHTO standards, but go for NACTO standards and more context-sensitive implementations. Because I've heard a lot of engineers they kind of default to the green book as to why Main Street has to have 15-foot 5 lanes, but turn radii that causes fatalities. So wondering how that kind of interplays into this study.
It's a great point, and I think yes, from the pedestrian side, we absolutely will. My own opinion is that Tucker road designer, they are never gonna go through. I just don't think that's gonna happen. And I think AASHTO, I know they're working on, that last year, the pedestrian, whatever they call it, a subcommittee, they're committee on design, and I know they're working on revising their standards as well, but they are not as ahead of the game as maybe some of there's a little more reactive. Did I answer your question? I didn't do that.
A little bit, I guess. So I guess based on your response, it's solely focused on AASHTO standards and current VDOT standards, and not kind of comparing them to other recognized standards. And as far as effective treatments for vulnerable groups.
I would answer that, it depends who you talk to on the design team. If you're talking to the road designer, the AASHTO Green Book is the Bible, which is it. If you're talking to the traffic engineers, they have other sources that they, and there's negotiation in a lot of designs with the board. So, yes, we'll look at all the standards. As far as road design and road geometry, I don't think AASHTO will ever go away. It's my opinion, for sure. Yeah. Yes.
Do you imagine the outcome of this would be like some sort of like tool, like a matrix with like different factors to consider, or is it going to be more like a research paper, like a white paper, or like you know what I mean? Like we're asking like these very like specific questions about like how to implement that. Like, is there going to be something that's sort of we can put it in front of our design team and say these are all the factors that we need to consider in addition to what's in your manual?
Great question.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear before on the slide. The results of this, first and foremost, will be to benefit you.
Right.
So we are going to produce a deliverable that benefits them in their safety plan.
Yeah.
Safety act. And whether that's tables or whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
There will certainly be research effort on the backside that can help in other areas,
Mm-hmm.
but there will be tangible and meaningful results. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on this? And so what you need from us is a recommendation to the policy board that we go forward with this application for safe streets and roads for all. Anyone like to make a motion? What's that?
I recommend that we do that.
Okay, and a second. Lonnie, thank you.
I'm good with words.
Lonnie is our second. All in favor of recommending this to the policy board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, well, you have your recommendation for the policy board, and you get to make that presentation again next week.
I'd probably be the same one.
Thank you, Rob.
And thank you everybody for the time, and especially thank you for those who have helped
work with us to get us to this point. We really do appreciate it, Frank.
And for all the good questions. It's
Yeah,
really helpful.
Absolutely.
All right, and next we're gonna have an update from Gorion on our current Safe Streets and Roads for All project.
Just to say to everyone, we have received the draft comprehensive safety action plan. It's currently going under review, and we will be presenting to all 6 of the jurisdictions. We actually conducted a presentation to the Nelson County Board of Supervisors on April 8th. Just for CAMPO standards, the Albemarle presentation is on May 7th, and the City of Charlottesville City Council is on May 5th.
For now.
For now. There's a lot of information in the comprehensive safety action plan. We're getting feedback from all of our jurisdictions. We are also asking them to adopt the plan as long as it aligns with their expectations, should they not have any feedback for it. That's about the biggest thing about the safety action plan.
I'll just add, requirement of USDOT is that the plan is adopted by all jurisdictions by June 30th, and then the federal grant needs to be fully closed by September 30th.
So I'm looking at our next update, which is the calendar. So we're gonna meet again in June. Do we do anything as a body in June with the safety action plan? I assume by then we've had all of the jurisdictions adopt it. We don't need to put a stamp of any sort on it.
Yeah, so as a regional project, the jurisdictions are the ones that have to adopt the plan. Because they have chapters in the plan specifically showing projects for their roads and issues, so. No action needed from CA and MPO.
All right. And there's no action on that item, so we can move along to Chuck and Sandy giving us an update on VDOT projects.
Yeah. Do you want me to start, Chuck, or do you want to start?
Go ahead. I mean, I can do the pipeline if you want to do stars, pretty much most of the stuff on those anyway, so.
Study in West Main and Ridge McIntyre in the city of Charlottesville. The survey closed last week. We had 675 responses. So good job, Charlottesville. Maybe we can have a little competition with the US 29 study, see which one comes out on top. But good response on there. The draft existing conditions report has been developed and is under review. Some of the technical staff is meeting with the consultants on Friday to review the draft report, but that one is rolling right along on schedule. For the US 29 corridor and the bypass and interchange studies, that survey is currently being drafted. So we have sent the draft survey out to the study work group members to review it and provide feedback by the end of this week. That will launch on May 9th and it will wrap up on May 23rd. So heads up if you need to coordinate with anybody in your communications teams to help get the word out on that one. Traffic counts are also scheduled for later this month. There were some delays getting this project going. Initially just working out the scope and getting everything in place. So we will need to keep it moving pretty efficiently, but there was some flow time built into the schedule. So we should still be able to have that completed and ready for recommendations by around 7:00.
Sandy, you said the survey for 29's May 9th to 23rd.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I know you just told me this one.
Then Chuck, do you want to do the pipeline?
Yeah, for the pipeline studies, let's see, I'm on, okay. For the pipeline studies, we met with the contractor, the consultants last week to go over some of the setup, some of the preliminary stuff. We do have a meeting with the stakeholders working group set up for Monday to talk about the 2 studies. They're scheduling data collection later this month. As well as, like I said, the kickoff meetings, and then we're probably going to be meeting on site at some point to start to walk those sites and look at those locations for both the interchange at 118 and the interchange at 5th Street. We've provided them updated the studies that are data that we currently have for all the previous work that's been done. So they have that, and they're starting to pull that information together and coordinate some of the preliminary stuff for those studies.
All right. Any questions on stars or pipeline or any other work that VDOT is handling right now?
Sandy, do you want comments now or just an email about the survey?
I would love them in writing so I could go back to them.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.
How does the launch of my?
So, what is the pipeline called that's, for the interchange? Is it just looking at, are those two combined in one pipeline study?
No,
They're
that's,
two separate interchange
They're
pipelines.
two separate studies. One is for the 118. It goes from just north of Fontaine all the way through Teal Lane to the south. We are looking at the park and ride lot at Teal Lane, as well as what we can do at the interchange to actually alleviate the southbound queuing, which is starting to become a problem. And then at the other interchange, we're looking at, it goes from Harris Road through Pinehurst, which is the first intersection to the south. We're looking at not necessarily alternatives at the intersection, because we did that last round for smart scale, but we're looking at an alternative without the shared use path on the bridge. So we're going to look at an alternative bridge separate for the shared use path, or possible. We'll have more discussions about what we're going to try to do with that. I know the county's looking at some other alternatives for shared use paths cross 64, either through Biscuit Run or through Olendsburg, over to Olendsburg Road and down that way. So we're going to have some discussions about that. But basically, we can't make the improvements at the bridge because it costs too much. So we got to figure out how to reduce the cost. So that's what we're doing. We're also looking at that section north to tie into what the city wants to try to do on Fifth Street coming south. And then we're going to look at Wegmans Way, the Fifth Street Station Parkway or Wegmans Way, to see if we can make that intersection, those two intersections work better, because they don't work very well right now. But that's pretty much the gist of the study. Any questions?
You said the county looking at alternatives to crossing 64, or it sounds like. So I'm looking at you, Albert. Are you the
Yeah.
county?
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole Lindbergh project is funded and designed, so that'll be I don't know, it won't be a full 10 foot, but it'll be going under the highway right there, and then.
Wait, I'm sorry.
That's the sidewalk.
Old Lynchburg sidewalk underneath the highway.
Yeah.
It's like Azalea Park. Yeah. And then Biscuit Run, right now it's more Parks and Rec, but they're looking at that as well.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, this morning I said you and I need to talk. We also need to talk. We need to talk 2 times.
Awesome.
Well, I will say we're not really getting into weeds about where that crossing could be. We had a crossing proposed along Fifth Street, and there are a lot of users on Fifth Street, especially from Southwood, that walk the corridor to get to the grocery stores north of 64. That came out in the original Fifth Street study. So there are a lot of people that want to use that corridor as a necessity to get to and from shopping and work and everything else, that are a disadvantaged population. So that's why we wanted to look at that, but I didn't want to look at something off alignment because it doesn't really serve them as well. But we can have that discussion at some of the stakeholders group meetings to see where we want to go with the study to try to get the cost down, because we do have a lot of crashes at the intersections at the interchange that are, I mean, those are two of the intersections that are some of the highest ranking in the district. So I want to make sure we're coming up with solutions for them. The DDI solves that problem, but if we can't get the cost down, we can't fix that problem. And that's more the issue than anything else. And then there's issues at Fifth Street Station, like I said, and Wegmans Way. So those are some intersections we need to look at too.
All right. Any other questions on VDOT projects? Hearing none, we can move on to our next segment, which is roundtable updates. And I'll go ahead and kick us off, and Tommy can help me fill in blanks. For City of Charlottesville, we've got a bunch of stuff going on, obviously. So last month we had our public engagement for the demonstration project that's associated with Safe Streets and Roads for All. We're looking at a temporary test at the intersection of East High and Mead, and East High and Stewart, and Mead and Stewart, that triangle on the east side of town. Figuring out if, changing some access there will make things safer for all the people going through that part of our community. We got lots of great feedback on that. We're pulling together the final design, which if you looked at any of the options that we were proposing, aligns more with option 2, where you'll have two-way traffic along Mead Street between East High and Stewart, but you won't be able to turn left onto Mead Street onto Mead from East High. So that eliminates a dangerous left turn. It also helps us square up the right turn from Mead onto East High in a way that shortens up the crosswalk enough that we can actually put in a crosswalk. So we are putting the finishing touches on those designs, and we'll be hopefully taking that to City Council on the 5th, along with the draft safety action plan to be adopted. And then we'll look to deploy it over the summer for about 60 days and see how it works. Right now, there's a little bit of a discussion amongst council of whether we're going to leave it in after 60 days or not. But right now we're saying that it's just a temporary test until they say otherwise. The other big project that we're working on right now is the 5th Street road diet and bikeway project. We went out and did some public engagement for that last week. We also have a survey going for that right now. It should be up until the end of the month, so April 30th. And then we'll be coming back with selecting some design options from that. We're trying to figure out whether we go all the way to 5th Street Station with that or stop at Harris Road. And some of that is, do we want VDOT to fix the problems first before we come in with a cycle track? Or do we want to put a cycle track there first and then make VDOT cope with it and figure out a traffic solution for it? So we put that chicken and the egg question before the public and a few other design options, and hope we get some good guidance on that towards the end of the month. We would hope to also make that kind of a quick turnaround, putting out the design on the ground probably later this summer once we get all the materials for the protection element of that protected bike lane. The other big project that we're working on is we've gotten a directive from the city manager's office to identify urgent transportation improvements around the city and also locations where we can test traffic calming devices. We've been working through a list of those locations for about 4 months now. We're closing in on it. I think we may be having one of our final meetings later this afternoon on what does that list need to look like. We have a budget of about $500,000 to go after quick build kind of projects to make a difference this year. So we're hashing that out, should be publishing the list of what those will be in the next month. And my last big update is we have hired our first transit planner in the city, Zoe McComber, who has joined us here. Please say hi if you haven't met her already. We're really excited to have her on board because we're going to be gearing up to do some prioritization work with CARTA over the next few months to figure out what are the regional priorities for transit, as well as talk sort of within the city of how much do we want to invest in our next fiscal year in local dollars into transit, so that we can expand our services to what we had pre-pandemic and potentially beyond that. So a lot of fun things cooking in the city right now. Staying busy. Tommy, do you have anything to add? I assume you have some bike minutes, so.
Yeah. So we installed 13 new bike racks down the street here. A couple ones seem a little wonky. We need to fix those, but take a look.
That's at the transit center.
At the transit center, we're going to install some over by Quality Pie in the near future, and we've got plans to install a bunch more throughout the city. We've installed several at schools and parks over the past 6 months as well. But we're also working on a bike walk program, mainly a website, and specifically we're going to be working on getting bikeseville.com up and running by Saturday, ahead of Bike Month. If you recall, this is an opportunity for us to promote the easy routes that we've been building as these kind of quiet bike routes throughout our community to the public. And as part of that programming for Bike Month, we're going to lead guided bike rides out of Farmers Market on Saturdays in the month of May. So come join us. It's been very helpful for me, thinking, how am I gonna lead a group of people throughout our community on bikes? And then it really identifies conflict points. When you have to think in those terms. But we're also looking for help at our bike valet for Fridays after 5. So if anybody, I know that Sarah and Isabella are gonna be there. I think the last, or maybe not.
We're gonna be,
You're gonna be at the farmer's market, Saturday farmer's market. I don't know about Fridays after 5.
yeah, well, we are scheduled to.
You are
table
scheduled? Okay.
at Fridays after
That's right.
5 on April 25th and May 30th, I believe.
Okay.
Are the dates, yeah.
Perfect. So, and then also just want to say that the neighborhood walks are going really well. We had one on Sunday that we partnered with UVA, and Bill did a tremendous job kind of leading us through grounds
And
capital G alerts.
and the partner.
Right, and the other part, and Lonnie, you mentioned Ragged Mountain. We're partnering with Ragged Mountain. We started a couple weeks ago, so that was our first walk on partnering with Ragged Mountain on these neighborhood walks. So our next one is through Woolen Mills on Mother's Day, May 11th, and Ben's going to be leading that one. So yeah, it's about 3-mile loop through Woolen Mills neighborhood, but that's basically all I got.
Cool.
What's your participation been like for those? I've still yet to be able to-
It varies up and down. So this last one was north of 25 folks. In July of last year, I think we got 4.
Okay, which is
I think that we're still finding our footing on how to get the word out about it, which is where Bike C-Bill comes into play, because we've already gotten, and that's another maybe announcement, is we've already got 1,000 people sign up for our Bike Walk C-Bill newsletter. And the only mechanism to promote that right now is through the e-bike voucher program. So that should be something I should say. We have our second round of e-bike vouchers. First round, we're super successful. We issued 25 vouchers, and about 12 people have gotten e-bikes in the city of Charlottesville because of the voucher program, and they have another 2 weeks, 3 weeks to redeem their voucher, and they'll be issuing another 25 on May 7th. So if you are a city resident and not a city employee, which we are the only ones, then sign up to get a e-bike voucher.
All right. That's enough from the city, I guess. County.
The major update for us is we just launched the transportation chapter for our comprehensive plan. It should be up on the Engage Albemarle website as a PDF. So check it out and let us know if you have any questions.
I'll say that I've reviewed it already and it looks very good. It brings a lot of great improvements in terms of recognizing other road users besides cars. And so it's like, and really a lot more acknowledgement of the rural area. And that's plans for this. Cool.
I guess I should mention along with that it will be going to the PC May 6th and will be at the Board of Supervisors on the 28th. So you have to say.
Is that final adoption of the comp plan, or what stage are we at?
So we're going through each chapter, reviewing with
Okay.
both bodies and then going through and edit. So at this point, we're anticipating adoption in October
That would be for the whole thing, right?
for the whole plan.
That's light at the end of the tunnel, though.
Yes.
All right, Sarah, do you have any updates on rideshare?
Yeah, I do. Pinging off of Tommy's update about Bike Month. While that starts in May, we're doing a lot of gearing up right now, particularly for the Bike Month Business Challenge. This will be our second year. We had great success last year with 13 businesses participating, which I thought was wonderful for just getting it off the ground. So we're hoping to match that or beat it for this year. So the opportunity is any business can sign up. You form a team with your employees, and then everyone through the Connecting VA app logs their bike trips during the month of May, and we declare a winner of the most trips taken and the most miles biked. There is an algorithm to even it out. So, if the teams, somebody has 30 people and somebody has 3 people, we do some magic to make that come out so that it's fair for everybody. And we're currently in the process of seeking some partners and sponsorships to have really cool prizes to award folks with that. So I don't have the exact info as to what you win, besides some pretty outstanding bragging rights. And this is a friendly competition, we'll say. The city was one of the winners last year, as well as the UVA Sustainability Office. So it's kind of a lot of good fun to get out and really enjoy biking in lovely May weather, fingers crossed. In addition to that, we did have our CAP strategic plan finally approved since the last time that we met. We are also continuing with the DRPT campaigns. Right now it is connecting commuters. So we're promoting carpooling and van pooling a little bit more heavily. Obviously, we promote that all the time with our Connecting VA app. And as well as Guaranteed Ride Home. We have some radio ads as well as some digital advertising that's going out for that. Most of that will obviously switch over come May for Bike Month. So I think that's pretty much it.
All right, great. Vida, I don't think y'all have any other updates, but if you do, I'd like to give you the floor. All right. DRPT, Mitch.
Yeah. Because of current federal goings-ons, we've extended our MPO application for the UPWP tree funding until June 2nd. That email probably just in your inboxes once you're in this meeting. So you have a little more time there, and hopefully we'll get the allocations as quickly as they can get them to us. Our MPO webinar is on our YouTube channel, so if anyone is super curious and has an hour and 20 to burn, you can learn about our relationship with our MPO grantees across the state. As of April 1, we have a new STIP process that we're working with our finance team on. It's more on the admin side, so more for the MPO. It shouldn't impact any of our voting bodies across the state. But we are trying to refine it ahead of a joint procurement with VDOT on a management software. So fun to come. VTA, our Virginia Transit Association annual meeting, it is May 28th, 29th in Richmond. So registration's open for that. Highly encourage everyone to come to learn more about transit opportunities and presentations across the board on workforce development, all the way to management and planning. I believe that's it on my end.
All right, thank you, Mitch. We don't have anybody from FHWA or FTA or technically CAT, but I will give an update for CAT. Last night, our city council adopted their budget. It did not include any expansions to CAT service, but as part of their budget adoption, they said, we need to start talking about FY27 right now. So I have a meeting today. We have a meeting, we had our budget adopted last night. We have our first meeting about the budget for next year today. So we're starting right off the bat, trying to figure out how we can expand service in the next year. Next we have John, Jason.
Yeah, well, let's see, where were we last? Our board has met a couple times and we've been updating our TDP, which is last up in 2022. Really mostly just polishing it and looking at objectives that have been checked off, things that are maybe don't need to be as big a priority, and then updating some of the dates, which are a little out. So we've been working on that. One of those goals is to do regular customer ridership satisfaction surveys. So we'll be doing that this April and May. So we'll look forward to having some support from all of you in your various roles and constituents to get that word out. We're keeping it short and simple, focused on service, both for demand response and for the Connect commuter bus. And we also want to hit populations that are not necessarily riders. We want to figure out why people are not riding, what the barriers are, potentially. And so, yeah. Another goal is to update our technology software. That's a couple-year project. We put a grant application into DRPT. I believe all those grants are now before the Commonwealth Transportation Board for final decision. And we're waiting those to see what we can do next. Not fun.
Awesome. All right, UVA, Bill, any updates you can be aware of?
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, hey, your annual reminder that graduation weekend is May 16th through the 18th. So, plan your trips accordingly. And then following that, as a lot of you know, RWSA has a major project to upgrade their raw water lines between Aggie Mountain Reservoir and the O Hill water treatment plant. Part of the route is gonna go right up Hereford Drive. So after graduation and after students are moved out, they're gonna hit it hard this summer to get that section of pipe in. So that road will be, for all intents and purposes, closed for most of the summer. I think they have a July deadline. They've got performance deadline. So they've got a detour plan, road closure plan. So basically, if you ever cut through that way or you're accessing No Hill, you're gonna have to come around Alderman Road and then go up McCormick Road that way.
And then the following work that comes after that is coming from UVA and going across the south side of town to like basically the east side.
That is a different project. That's their.
But that's the next one that's coming
their
after.
main water line. Yeah, and I'm not planning.
Lucky you.
Yeah, it hits us a little bit right there at Hereford Drive and Stadium Road, and it's all in the city. So that's on you guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun couple of years. All right, well, do you have any other updates from UVA? Awesome. So that's our last updates. We have no additional new members from the public show up, so we're good to go. I can go ahead and adjourn us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good.